Yeah, listen, I'm going to give you a guy right now. So Darius Slayton is an individual that we're not talking about enough. You know, there's a bunch of guys that you can see on that list if you go check it out that people mention when it comes to second-year breakout wide receivers. You know, there's individuals that are always in the news because they either make a lot of plays or their team is usually on TV during the weekend. But one guy that we didn't see enough of was this individual, Darius Slayton. And maybe it's because everybody was focused on Saquon. Maybe it's because the Giants weren't a good team last season. But if you look at his numbers, he was tied for the league lead among rookies with 8 TD catches. 8 TDs in your rookie season. Are you kidding me? I had a couple of them. If I had 8 TDs in my rookie year, I'm thinking I'm going to make the Hall of Fame. He was also fifth with 740 yards in just 14 games. So now imagine this. He comes back. He plays a full slate of games. And also, he gets help from guys that were banged up last year. Remember, Golden Tate under suspension, so he didn't come in later in the year, and he came back banged up. Sterling Shepard was a little banged up. And another thing I want you to keep in mind, Daniel Jones didn't have a traditional offseason this year. So the one thing he's going to remember from last year was the one dude that always came down with the ball when he threw it to him, and that's Darius Slayton. I guarantee that he has an even better year, and you will say his name more often after this year.
It's one of the 5 guys on your list from a fantasy perspective. You know I love numbers. You mentioned his, and they were great. He's going outside the top 40, but ahead of guys like Deebo Samuel, who's injured to start the year, Jamison Crowder, and Emmanuel Sanders, who's now in a high-powered Saints offense. I think it's interesting. Clearly, they have chemistry, right? It was Jones to Slayton. What do you think, Nate?
Yep.
How much do you think it helped that Daniel Jones clearly didn't start the season as a starter last year, that he got to hang out with him in second team in camp? Like, is there something to that?
Yeah, well, there's a certain chemistry that you have, whether it's on the field or even off the field, being young guys coming in, understanding that you're going through this journey together, and the simple fact that the 2 guys in front of them were banged up, which means they had to lean on each other.
Yeah, I love that. A guy who's not on your list, but I think that you probably just figured he'd be on everybody's list, is Marquise Brown. We saw the highlights there. He didn't have the best season statistically, less than 600 yards. He had some touchdowns, but he was, I think, 8th among rookies in yards. But this is a dude who was drafted to be the #1 guy. If Lamar does continue to progress, like you said earlier in the show, Nate, and he gets to elevate with his passing game at another level, this is going to be the guy. There's a reason that the Ravens did not bring in a top free agent at wide receiver. There is a reason that they did not draft a wide receiver until the 3rd round this year. Remember, the one positive from that loss to the Titans, Nate, was the fact that Hollywood Brown showed up, showed us about his big plays, his hands, his speed. He flashed all of that. He had 7 catches for 126 yards in that game. I think he gets slept on a little bit, Nate, because of Lamar Jackson and how dominant he is. That run game, of course, the defense even in Baltimore, but also because he's not the biggest guy. People need to really watch how he can make big plays.
Yeah, he's truly a #1. There's no doubt about it. The reason I didn't have him on my list, because statistically, I don't think he's asked to put up the same amount of yards and catches and touchdowns as other guys. Will he be successful in that offense? Yes, but because Lamar runs so much and there's a bunch of tight ends that also catch the ball, it's going to be tough for him to get up there statistically like those other second-year receivers.